Okay, what is broadband consciousness? Well, 99.9 reoccurring 9% of personal development tells us that we're choosing. We can choose to be happy or we can choose to be sad. What if that is totally incorrect? Just suppose that we would always choose to be happy. We would always choose to be vibrant. We would always make a positive choice. What if every time that there's something negative happening, we're not choosing? That's what broadband consciousness is about. Broadband consciousness is about taking your life literally onto a different level. You do not change behaviour on the level of behaviour. You do not change the tide, what the tide you imagine within the sea, standing in the sea, the ocean. You do not change the tide by standing in the water. You have to go all the way to the moon. We know that. That's what would change the tide. And it's the same with behaviour. If you want to change behaviour, you have to do it on the level of consciousness, awareness. Well, awareness means awakeness. You know, we all know the story about how they said that from the beginning of time up until a few centuries ago, we were totally convinced and we were told that the world was flat, and if we sailed off the edge of the world then big dragons would eat us alive. Now that seems ridiculous. That's exactly the way it's going to seem as we look back, and this is in the very near future, when we look at our behaviour and what's going on. You see, for the most part we're not choosing. Watch this, it's incredible. Right, there's a compliment, there's a criticism. What do you think most people would choose? Well, they say, well, I'd go for the compliment. But when you go out there, what is it most people are doing? What are they holding on to the longest? A criticism. Now when I ask people, I say, what does that mean? Initially they don't get it for the first few goes. Till you suddenly realise that what's actually happening is you're not choosing. Because I just said, what would you choose? You choose the compliment. What is it that we're doing? It's the criticism. I discovered 18 years ago, when I first got into personal development, that the only reason that we ever do anything is for a feeling. We want to feel good, we want to feel happy, we want to feel successful, we want to feel loved, we want to feel significant, safe and secure, whatever. They're all feelings. And where do these feelings come from? Well, they can only come from one place. They can only come from us. In other words, we are a powerhouse of feelings. We have all these feelings. Any feeling that you can ever imagine is inside you. You've got that. What I didn't know for years in personal development was, why is it then that if we already own the feelings that we want, that we long for, that we ache for, that's the bottom line to everything we do, why is it so difficult to access them? Which clearly it is. When you walk down the high street, you look at the faces of people, it's quite obvious that they're not always accessing the feelings that they would want to access. And only now can I answer that. The reason is that instead of choosing, we're reading from a script. Metaphorically, we're reading from a script. It's a script that was handed to us by our parents and our peers and our teachers. Guess where they got it from? Their parents, their peers and their teachers. So you say, well, is it a choice to read from the script? No, it isn't a choice, it's a reaction. You see, for most people, this is the scary bit. This is the biggie coming up now. They think they are the script. You see, we need a point of identity, a reference point, in order to know how to behave to any given situation that life may put our way. We've got to have a reference point. What broadband consciousness does, it challenges that reference point. You imagine the script that you're reading from, the script that says, well, you can't access these feelings, you're not rich enough, you're not attractive enough, you're not the right shape, you're not confident enough. And these are all the things that we put our life on hold for, and we don't access the feelings that we want. In other words, we're using just a tiny, tiny % of our real power because of the script. Now you imagine this script, if we were actually rewriting that script today. If you were writing a script that says how easy it is for you to access the feelings, you'd make it so easy to do all these things. So broadband consciousness takes people way, way past the script. Because you see, most people and most personal development is saying, oh, I need to change my script. I've got to change the script. You won't do it. You don't change the script. Whatever has happened is happened. It's in the script. Now that can sound like bad news, and it is bad news if you're in the script. When you go beyond the script, that's where the magic happens. That's what broadband consciousness is about. And we've got a one-liner that sums it up beautifully, and it says, we're all superheroes pretending to be ordinary people. Broadband consciousness is about taking you beyond the script to who you really are, which is a superhero. That's broadband consciousness.